So good evening, everybody. My name is Catherine Miro. I'm the current president of the League of Women Voters of Washington County. And thank you for coming to the League of Women Voters educational presentation on Know What You Sign. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So today's presentation will focus on the potential ballot proposals that could go before Michigan voters in 2026. This presentation is educational about what petitions are being circulated for 2026 and the proposal that is already on the 2026 ballot. This presentation does not advocate signing or not signing a petition. Before we proceed with the proposals, I'd like to give you a little history of the League. The League of Women Voters was officially founded in Chicago in 1920, just 6 months before the 19th Amendment was ratified and women gained the right to vote. Formed by the suffragists of the National American Woman Suffrage Association, the League began as a mighty political experiment designed to help 20 million women carry out their new responsibilities as voters. Our mission is empowering voters and defending democracy. Our vision is a pluralistic, multiracial democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. And we believe in the power of women to create a more perfect democracy. We have a proud reputation of being nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public. Okay, and as we get started here, I should have mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat for now. And then when the presentation is finished, we'll answer those questions. And then there still could be time also for raising your hands and just asking a question, orally too. And this material is complex. So if you have a question, it could easily be that others have the same one. So we are fortunate in Michigan to have a constitution that gives 3 powers to its citizens that not all states provide. The first power is called legislative initiative and gives voters the right, if certain conditions are met, to initiate legislation or laws. The second power is to invoke a referendum to repeal laws passed by the legislature. The third power is to amend the Michigan Constitution. Nothing in the Constitution may be altered without the approval of the voters. Any action by the legislature to amend the Constitution must be placed on the ballot. So there are different signature requirements for this current legislative cycle. And it's based on, you'll see these formulas that are used to determine how many signatures are needed. So for a constitutional amendment, signatures must be collected equal to 10% of the total votes cast for governor in the most recent gubernatorial election. And that is 446,198 signatures. So every time you see that in the upcoming slide, you'll know that that's a constitutional amendment. And the threshold is lower for the other initiatives or referendums. If it's an initiative, you must collect signatures equal to 8% of the total votes cast for governor in the most recent gubernatorial election. And that's 356,958 signatures required. In a referendum, you must collect signatures equal to 5% of the total votes cast for governor. In the most recent gubernatorial election, 223,099. And just a reminder that the referendum is something to reject a law that has already been passed. So that has the lowest threshold. And in Michigan, signatures on a petition for a constitutional amendment or initiated legislation are not counted if they were collected more than 180 days before the petition is filed with the Secretary of State. This 180-day window limits the amount of time campaigners have to gather valid signatures. Okay, the first initiative, and this will appear on the ballot, it automatically appears on the state's ballot every 16 years. And it's enshrined in Michigan Constitution's Article 12, Section 3. And the ballot wording says, shall a convention of elected delegates be convened in 2027 to draft a general revision of the state constitution for presentation to the state's voters for their approval or rejection. And this will appear, this will be proposal 1 on the November 2026 ballot. And so this petition is not being circulated. This will be a proposal on the ballot. And the following slides are all going to be about petitions that are being circulated. This is the only one that's not. The first of the Americans for Citizen Voting, number 1. And so this group has 2 constitutional amendments approved by the Board of State Canvassers. It is unclear if the sponsor will be gathering signatures for number 1. This version will require documentary proof of citizenship for newly registered voters. And then here is the wording of the 100-word summary. Require Secretary of State to verify citizenship of all registered voters, document citizenship, remove non-citizens using governmental records, and track separate eligibility requirements for federal and state or local elections. Prohibit counting ballots from voters with unverified citizenship unless voters show documents to the Secretary within 6 days post-election. For new registrations, require proof of citizenship by showing birth certificate, passport, and/or other documents. Eliminate affidavit alternative for voters without voter ID. Require photo ID or driver's license or partial social security number to vote absentee. Require state-funded hardship program for obtaining required documents. Subject violations to $1,000 fine and/or up to 5 years imprisonment. And this is a constitutional amendment, so it needs that 446,198 signature threshold. And the deadline for these is July 6th of 2026. And the deadline for all of these is right around that same time. It's when it was a year from when it was approved. And then Americans for Citizen Voting, number 2, this is the second amendment from the same group. It is pretty certain the sponsor will circulate petitions for this version. This proposed constitutional amendment will require, again, documentary proof of citizenship for new voter registration, as well as those voters updating their registration. And this is a constitutional amendment to require citizenship verification for all voters, birth certificate, passport, and/or other documents. Remove non-citizens after notice and 45-day rebuttal. Beginning November 2nd, 2027, prohibit counting ballots for voters with unverified citizenship unless documents shown to election administrator within 6 days post-election. Eliminate the affidavit alternative for voters without voter ID. Require photo ID or partial social security number to vote absentee. Subject violators to fine and/or imprisonment. And that has the same threshold and deadline as the first one. And then here is another one. It's called Protect Voters' Rights. Again, a constitutional amendment. Another proposal requiring documentary proof of citizenship. And this one would require the Secretary of State to verify citizenship of all registered voters, document citizenship, remove non-citizens using governmental records, and track separate eligibility requirements for federal and state or local elections. Prohibit counting ballots from voters with unverified citizenship unless voters show documents to Secretary within 6 days post-election. For new registrations, require proof of citizenship by showing birth certificate, passport, and/or other documents. Eliminate affidavit alternative for voters without photo ID. Require photo ID or driver's license or partial Social Security number to vote absentee. Require state-funded hardship program for obtaining required documents, subject violations to $1,000 fine and/or up to 5 years imprisonment. Same signature threshold, same due date. And all three proposals will require documentation, and many of these documents are costly and could be difficult to obtain for some voters. Okay, so those are the three that talk about documentary proof of citizenship. Now the next proposals are on varied topics. And here we have one called Rank My Vote. And the 100-word summary of this proposal includes to require ranked choice voting for federal offices, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and secretary of state, allowing voters to numerically rank candidates by voter preference starting in 2029. Count votes in rounds, eliminating lowest ranked candidate and reallocating their votes to remaining ranked candidates until the candidate with the most final round votes is declared the winner. It will allow voters to rank at least 4 more candidates than positions to be nominated elected, unless there's an insufficient number of candidates. It will authorize local jurisdictions to adopt use of ranked choice voting in local elections. It will move the August primary to June or earlier in even year elections. It will require legislative funding and implementing legislation. And again, constitutional amendment by that same date. The next one is called AxMiTax, and the 100-word summary includes prohibiting real and personal property taxes, currently the primary funding source for counties, municipalities, schools, community colleges, parks, and voter-approved bond repayment. It would increase a portion of state sales tax redirected to cities, townships, and villages from 10% to 13.3%, and from 0% to 6.67% for counties. It would shift 10% of state income, marijuana, alcohol, and tobacco tax revenue to local governments. And it will allow use of this revenue only for listed essential government and infrastructure services, but not for schools, community colleges, parks, or local government services. And finally, it would require 60% voter approval for local tax increases and require 2/3 vote of the legislature for tax increases greater than 0.1% over 5 years. Again, a constitutional amendment with that same July 6, 2026 due date for signatures. The next proposal being circulated is voters to stop pay cuts. And the items listed on the slide will become law if passed. And the specifics are in the 100-word summary, which includes decreasing the minimum wage from $13.73 to $13.29 in 2026, and from $15 to $14.16 in 2027, with annual inflation-based increases thereafter. It will increase tipped worker wage to 48% of the full minimum wage in 2025, 60% in 2026, 70% in 2027, 80% in 2028, 90% in 2029, and 100% in 2030. It will eliminate civil fines for employers failing to pay minimum hourly wage. If enough valid signatures are collected, the repeal of Public Act 1, 2025 would appear on the November 2026 ballot. So that's a referendum which is designed to repeal something, and the threshold is lower. So 223,099 valid signatures 90 days prior to the election. The next one is called Invest in My Kids, and it's a constitutional amendment. You can see the same data here. And the 100-word summary includes, beginning in 2027, impose an additional 5% tax on annual taxable income over $1 million for joint filers and over $500,000 for single filers. This tax is in addition to the existing state income taxes and deposited into the state school aid fund. It will require that money from this tax be used exclusively on local school district classrooms, career and technical education, reducing class sizes, and retaining teachers. It would prohibit the use of the money for other purposes, with spending subject to annual audits. Next, Michiganders for Money Out of Politics. This is an initiative. You can see the lower threshold of signatures, but higher than the one to repeal something. And the 100-word summary includes, this would prohibit regulated electric and gas utilities, contractors with over $250,000 annually in government contracts, and people and organizations with substantial connections to these utilities or contractors from making direct or indirect campaign contributions to those who run for or hold offices that impact them. It would expand campaign finance laws and restrictions that regulate spending on political communications, including laws that require disclosing donor information to apply to communications clearly identifying candidates or ballot questions, even if they do not expressly advocate voting for or against them. And it would expressly apply the law requiring disclosure of who paid for political communications to internet political communications. Okay, so that's all of the possible petitions out there. And now just some other information. The identification of a petition sponsor. And there are certain required items on the petition sheet, including in 8-point type, the name and address of the person, group, or organization paying for the printing of the petition form, preceded by the words, paid for with regulated funds by blank. MCL 169.247. There are no exceptions. It is also important to understand that the Board of State Canvassers approves the 100-word summary if submitted, but it is not required. And the Board of State Canvassers does not approve the merit of the petitions. Okay. This QR code will take you to a summary of what we just talked about, and that's also in the chat, a link to it's the same document. And so it's important to, like, before you put your signature on a petition, take the time to fully read, understand, and verify what it is asking for, what the potential consequences are, and who is behind it, so you're making an informed decision. It's essentially a reminder to be informed and cautious, so voters don't accidentally support something you may disagree with or something that has hidden implications. And here are some additional resources. This first one, the Michigan Board of State Canvassers, is actually really interesting and useful. It will have information on you can see the actual petition that has been submitted to the Michigan Board of State Canvassers, for example, and other information. And vote 411 when the time comes. I mean, when that is ready, all the information will also be on this is the league's voting website. There's Michigan Voter Information Center. And then, of course, there's the League of Women Voters of Michigan. Since this is a statewide effort, going to that website is helpful. And then the ballot proposal petition manual, there's also that, like, it's really kind of amazing what detailed information you can find, through michigan.gov. And I was looking at this one earlier too, and finding some good information. Okay, next, I'm preaching to the choir here, but this is going to be recorded and put on our website. So I'm going to make a pitch for why you should join the league. Membership in the League of Women Voters is open to all who are age 16 and older, and joining automatically confers membership at the local, state, and national levels. Membership provides the opportunity to be actively involved in local, state, and national issues. And you can go here to join or renew. You could also go to the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County website. Okay, now I'm going to stop sharing, and Marjorie's going to help me see what's been in the chat. And then we can also take questions after that from people who raise their hands. But so Marjorie, if we start out, is there anything in the chat that I can try to, I'll do my best to answer. I mean, there's just a lot of detailed information, and I studied it, and I've looked at different places. So I'll do my best to answer it, and if I can't, I will follow up.
Melanie, Melanie asks, who is the group that is promoting the third constitutional amendment, which is listed as Protect Voters' Rights? And I answered that for you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
It's the Committee to Protect Voters' Rights is the organization that is that has filed a petition. And I found that by looking at the Board of Canvassers materials that we have listed above.
Oh, great. Thank you. Anything else in the chat?
Nope.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question that they want to ask just by asking it or raising your hand? Sue?
You need to unmute, Sue.
I know there's a lot of information on each of the three that require documentation of citizenship. And I've been trying to get in my head, what's the difference between the three?
I've given this presentation several times, and I've read the information. It seems they're so similar. To me, there's no substantial difference. And the minutiae, I'm not sure I could tell you without really going back and digging. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that. So it seems.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, it's that top thing of the documentary proof of citizenship, and then it seems like the details, some of them are almost exactly the same, and there are a few differences.
Mm-hmm.
Which is confusing if you're, being asked to sign something too.
Right.
Okay, so I see, now I can see the chat, Marjorie, and I can see, Larry Engelhardt asked, does the League of Women Voters support or object to any of these initiatives? And if you go, on the League of Women Voters of Michigan website, you can, find information on that. Since this is an educational presentation, I'm not going to address that right now. And once we know what has made, like, what's going to be on the ballot, then, and even starting in January too, like, we're going to be more vocal about what we advocate for or against. And in subsequent presentations, we can talk about that. Oh yeah, so thank you, Sandy. Yeah, League of Women Voters of Michigan Advocacy, scroll down to see the petitions. Thank you for that. Okay.
Craig Harvey also mentioned a note about the
Oh.
Rank Michigan vote petition. Can you see
Yeah.
that?
Can you read
Catherine?
it? It's hard for me to read that
The
whole.
180-day circulation window started on July 17th, so the window ends on January 13th of next year unless the group chooses to keep going and drop off the early signatures. I have no idea about other petitions.
Yeah, that's really helpful information. And I'm sure, so whenever somebody starts gathering petitions, they have that 180-day window, and then the deadline is what was on the slides. And so, Craig, that's really helpful. Like, so if they don't get all their signatures, they can drop the early ones and keep going, extending the date. Is there anything else you'd like to add about that, Craig?
Just that, I don't see them doing that, but I have no idea. I'm collecting signatures, but I'm not in the leadership or decision-making loop at all.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else that people have questions about or would like to comment on? I just want to say too, in 2026, we're gonna, my goal is, for leadership is to get as much information out to the public as possible about what's coming up, and not only, especially once things get on the ballot, but even before then too, like, really try to give people as much information as we can about these. It's confusing. There's a lot of language, and the ballot is going to be stuffed with other things. Of course, it's going to be a really consequential election. And then these proposals are on top of that. And, these proposals will have an impact if they pass. So. Okay, non-citizen voting is already illegal, and non-citizen voting fraud is extremely low. What are these ballot initiatives changing about the current voting laws and procedure? Yes, that is a good question. There's putting a lot of burdensome rules on people for something that's not a problem. Sue?
Well, many people would say the whole point is to depress the vote by making it harder for people to vote.
Yes, and I do want to point people to, there's a group called No Red Tape for Michigan, and we're a part of that coalition. And if you go to noredtapeformi.com, you can find more information on how to support that.
There's also a link in the chat for that.
Oh, thank you, Marjorie. Is there anything else? And if you have a question, at some other time, please you could just email lwvwashina.org or president@lwvwashina. And also by December 1st, we're going to be coming out with a survey asking members what you would like to see for program in 2026. And something like this, I'm guessing, is top of mind for a lot of people, is just getting educated on, more about what's going to be on the ballot. And so look for that and give us your feedback about what you'd like to learn more about, so we can prepare programs and, find speakers and do all the things that, we always do, but, based on what you would like to learn more about. We've done a lot of great programs in the past few months, and it's really energizing to me to see that, and, we'd love to do more, so be on the lookout for that. And I know one more thing. If you know of a group that might be interested in this presentation, where, we're just trying to spread the word, let us know. We've got some people out there also, asking groups that might like to hear this. I mean, I've done the presentation several times out in the community, and it's really, people are really interested in this and have been asking a lot of good questions, and it also generates people who are interested in the league and in doing something, especially in 2026. So if you have any groups that you're a part of or you might know about, just let us know and we can contact. All right. Well, I think that's it for tonight. Thanks everybody for coming. And yeah, I hope everybody has a good evening.